Have you ever asked yourself why? After all the disappointments, something inside you still refuses to give up. Why? Even when you were overlooked, rejected, or forgotten, your heart still whispered, "This is not the end for me," and why? In your quietest moments, do you sense that heaven has been holding back a secret about your life, waiting for the right moment to reveal it? Beloved, it's because God has never stopped working in the shadows of your story. While others only saw your struggle, He was carefully planting the seeds of a future no one else could imagine. While people said you were finished, He was quietly writing the next chapter, a chapter filled with favor, restoration, and yes, riches that will overflow in ways beyond human logic. You, God's chosen one, are not walking into a blessing that looks ordinary. No, this is a breakthrough that carries both the weight of eternity and the sweetness of divine surprise. It's not just about money or possessions. It's about being lifted into a place where your life itself becomes a testimony of God's power. And when that happens, those who once doubted you will have no choice but to see His hand upon you. If these words stir something inside you, type 777 inches, the comments. It's your bold declaration that this promise is yours. And let me pause here to say thank you, with all my heart, to each one of you who has stood by this channel, especially those who have given through super thanks. Your love and faith keep this message alive. Whether you've given or simply shown up, you are a blessing, and I honor you. But don't step away just yet, because the twist God is about to reveal is far greater, far stranger, and far more glorious than anyone expected. And in the next moments, you'll see why this story could only unfold through you, God's chosen ones. God is about to make you rich, but nobody saw this twist coming. Before your first breath, a blueprint was drafted with your name etched into the beams. Yes, a calling poured into your spirit long before the world attached labels to your skin. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Whispers Jeremiah 1-5. Not from a distance, but like an architect leaning over sacred plans. Life has tried to graffiti those walls. Loss, delay, opinions, but heaven never misfiled your assignment. It preserved it. So why does your chest quicken right now? As if a vault door inside is beginning to move. What if the signal you're sensing is not pressure to perform, but the quiet thunder of what God planted preparing to rise? The tremor you feel is not panic, it's resonance. The way a tuning fork hums when a true note is struck nearby. Destiny is sounding its pitch, and your spirit remembers the frequency. Beneath the noise of timelines and expectations, a patient certainty is gathering, as if eternity itself is exhaling into your present moment. This moment is not a contest of hustle, not a sprint across someone else's field. The rules that were written to keep you small were never your constitution. You were not fashioned to prove worth on a scoreboard built by fear. You were shaped for alignment, for that narrow, winded path where footsteps ring true. Christ once framed it like this: narrow is the road that leads to life, Matthew 7:14. And you chose it when applause went silent and shortcuts glittered. Does your memory still carry the night you turned down an easy stage because your soul would have had to split in two when you lowered the mask that helped you survive? Did a deeper breath return to your ribs? The world prizes velocity. Heaven esteems vector direction over speed. What endures is not how fast you ran, but whether your feet were aimed toward life. And now, the path you picked in private is beginning to light up in public, torch by torch. This is the hour heaven begins to fund what heaven formed. Not the persona that patched over pain, not the costume tailored for rooms that demanded sparkle but rejected truth. The grant of God is aimed at the real you, the one who kept faith when it cost comfort, the one who watered prayer in dry seasons and refused to auction conviction for influence. You are not being rewarded for playing the game, you are being entrusted because you refused it. In due season we shall reap. If we do not give up, Galatians 6-9 slips like oil over the places where fatigue once ached. What if the season has quietly turned while you were still faithful? And what you thought was a ceiling is actually a hinge. Entrustment arrives not as confetti, but as capacity. Your interior has been enlarged to carry what once would have crushed you. The assignment didn't change, your stature did. Now the mantle that looked oversized rests on shoulders strengthened by obedience. Platforms asked for your gifts and not your truth. But you stepped back from the neon and said yes to what was sacred. You stayed poor in ego and wealthy in alignment, a different economy, a different exchange rate. Now the return is arriving, not as a paycheck for performance, but as a divine endorsement of your becoming. The psalmist states it plainly, promotion comes neither from the east nor from the west, but God is the judge. He puts down one and sets up another. Psalm 75-6-7. When the king signs a decree, the doors behave like doors. They open. I will place on his shoulder the key of the house of David. What he opens, none can shut. Isaiah 22:22. Have you noticed resistance softening where it once felt like stone? As if old walls remembered they were gates. The right rooms will start requesting your truth, not extracting your image. Invitations will be less about spotlight and more about assignment, fewer stages, greater weight. And you will know the difference by the peace that meets you at the threshold. When God funds your life, the currency is favor and the exchange clears in peace. Anxiety used to be the tax on every step. Now stillness begins to settle like morning fog across a valley. Money can purchase access, but it cannot mint anointing. Grace does not swipe. It saturates. A line from a hymn drifts across the threshold, was blind. But now I see, and suddenly the room you've always occupied sharpens into focus. Outlines bright as sunrise on glass. Is it possible that the wealth about to break into your hands is simply the material reflection of an interior alignment already complete? The ledger may list numbers, but heaven audits motives. That is why your increase will add wholeness, not fracture. What arrives will fit your soul's architecture. Like a keystone in an arch, it bears weight by belonging. And where striving once scraped your nerves raw, gentleness will now carry your steps with surprising strength. Let's anchor this with a life beyond the page. Vincent van Gogh, painter, breaker of form. The soul that saw wheat fields blaze like living gold once wrote to his brother that great things are done by a series of small things brought together. That is what you've done, small obediences stitched into an unignorable tapestry. The market didn't cheer him in his lifetime, the gallery of heaven did. In a world that auctions worth by the minute, your quiet persistence has been the cathedral, being raised stone by living stone. Some works are not built for the season that births them, they are planted for the season that understands them. Your faithfulness has dated the canvas, time will sign it publicly. And when recognition finally arrives, it will bow to purpose, not replace it. Nature writes this promise inside its own cycles. The bamboo grove spends years building a lattice of roots, almost invisible, then one season. It surges skyward, meter upon meter, as if time had been hoarded and suddenly released. The salmon swims against a river that mocks direction until the exact birthplace is reached. Favor looks like that. Strength running countercurrent with a memory deeper than maps. Seeds in the desert wait dormant for a storm that may not visit for years. One rain, and an entire plain becomes color. Mycelium weaves underground, connecting trees in a network of exchange. What if heaven has been forming your network beneath the surface, so that provision travels along lines unseen until the forest wakes? You have been living in root time, not bloom time. Now the canopy is about to appear. The systems God designed in you: resilience, patience, clarity, are switching from formation to expression. This is not sudden, it is right on time disguised as sudden. Scripture keeps threading the same pattern: identity, waiting, unveiling. Joseph carried a dream into a pit and a prison before it wore a crown. Yet the text says, "The Lord was with Joseph and gave him favor." Genesis 39-21. Favor is not a stage light, it is a river. It flows through low places, gathers power in what looks like obscurity, and arrives with authority when the timing is full. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22, which means the increase planned for you won't fracture your soul to multiply your accounts. What is holy expands without tearing the fabric of your peace. The promotion that fits you will not require shrinking your truth. And as the unfolding continues, you'll notice how seamlessly joy and responsibility begin to share the same table. Let a voice from an ordinary street testify. Mara, a night shift nurse who once journaled under hallway fluorescents, told her small circle, "I stopped chasing positions and started curating presence." Within months, a scholarship opened for advanced training she never applied for, and the schedule she needed to care for her father rearranged itself around her. She didn't bribe the future, she befriended obedience. The math of heaven looked nothing like the math of stress. Her story is not an outlier, it's a pattern that hides in plain sight, where surrender meets strategy. Purpose, when aligned, attracts provision, the way true north aligns a compass. What once felt like random mercy reveals itself as ordered mercy. And because truth is balanced, here is the caution woven into courage. There will always be a counterfeit treasurer, someone like Micaiah's false prophets who echoed what a king wanted to hear. Or in our own time, a producer who dangles a platform at the cost of your pulse. The consequence is predictable, a moment of noise, years of ache. But you already walked past that offer. That's why this moment is clean. Counterfeits promise acceleration while eroding direction. They offer altitude without oxygen. Your refusal spared you from a summit that suffocates. Now integrity becomes your atmosphere: breathable, sustainable, clear. So listen across the rafters of your spirit. Construction has resumed. The scaffolding you thought was permanent is coming down, and the load-bearing beams of calling are visible again. This is wealth that flows like a tuned instrument, the resonance of a life aligned with the composer. Doors will open because keys have been placed on your shoulder. Tables will extend because the host has your name in the seating plan. Peace will replace panic. Clarity will replace confusion. And resources will arrive as if summoned by a voice you know by heart. Provision is not chasing you, it has found you. And as you move, you'll notice how grace keeps pace without strain. Stride for stride. Rise now, stand fully in the name written on your blueprints. Step through the door that finally behaves like a door. Gather your oil, Steady your breath and move with the grace that has been chasing you for years. This is the hour heaven funds what heaven formed. Go, take your place, carry your fire, and walk rich in the only currency that never collapses, the favor of God. The future is not distant, it is present and opening. Courage belongs to you as naturally as breath, and every step you take will echo with the sound of a promise kept. They won't be able to chart how you're stepping into overflow without formulas, without sponsors, without the blueprints hustlers swear by, because what's unfolding in your life is not a lab experiment. It's a living covenant. Analysts will try to reverse engineer the sequence, yet the code won't compile. This isn't the product of method. It's the fruit of faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Flows through your story like electricity through a hidden circuit, Hebrews 11:1. Did you notice how the tables turned when you stopped chasing metrics and started carrying presence? And when the cup in your hand felt ordinary, did a whisper rise inside, "You prepare a table before me, my cup overflows," as if Psalm 23:5 had just been written across your evening? What if the overflow they're trying to diagram is simply grace exceeding capacity? The way a spring refuses to stay underground once the pressure of purpose reaches critical mass. You did not skip steps, you honored timing. While others sprinted for headlines, you stood still long enough for truth to catch up with you. There were hours when your muscles begged for motion, yet your spirit chose calibration. Like an orchestra pausing on a charged rest so the next note can land with power. For the vision awaits its appointed time if it seems slow. Wait for it, it will surely come. Slid into your midnight like a steady hand on your shoulder, Habakkuk 2-3. When applause tracked other names. Did you feel your roots deepening rather than drying? And beneath that quiet, could you sense architecture rising, keystones set? Buttresses placed so the weight coming would not make your calling fracture along old fault lines. You allowed shadows to be your sanctuary. Validation stopped being your oxygen. Alignment became your atmosphere. In that surrender, a ledger beyond algorithms inked your name into inheritance, impact over income, legacy over likes. We know that all things work together for good to those who love God didn't show up as a slogan, it showed up as a pattern. Stitching disappointments into design, Romans 8:28. When the room was silent, did your spirit hum at a frequency only heaven measures? When people asked for your highlight reel, did you keep handing God your whole reel, blooper cuts and all, because you finally trusted the editor? And as you waited, wasn't there a strange momentum building, like a tide pulling back hard before it returned with force? God witnessed the salt on your pillow and the steel in your sunrise, the nights you wept to sleep and still rose with belief. He saw the seasons when others were crowned while you carried weight in secret. He also saw that the weight became muscle. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time He may exalt you. Threaded your calendar with an invisible gold, 1 Peter 5-6. In the corridors where you felt unseen, did a different sight awaken the certainty that the unseen one was drafting your tomorrow with a calm hand? And now, as the doors start breathing open, can you trace how His timing spared you from blessings that arrived too early and collapse like ill-cured concrete? Creation has been tutoring you the whole time. Monarch butterflies navigate a sky with no signposts, yet the magnetism inside them remembers a forest they've never visited. Guidance works like that internal north, not external noise. Giant sequoia cones open under fire. releasing seed precisely where ash has made the soil ready. Purifying heat wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Coral reefs thrive by symbiosis. Life multiplies where honest exchange flows, so your circle is shifting toward oxygen givers, not spotlight takers. Starlings form murmuration waves that bend as one body. Favor, when it comes, will coordinate opportunities with that same fluid intelligence. And you will feel carried rather than crowded, like glaciers carving valleys. The slow, the relentless grace of God has shaped channels where rivers of provision can now run without flooding the banks. Because every ascent attracts an adversary. Here's a caution tethered to courage. Meet L. Mercer, once a rising media impresario, famed for shock and speed tactics. His empire inflated fast. Then auditors uncovered fabricated numbers and coercive contracts. The consequence was brutal. Public collapse. Private lawsuits. A legacy traded for trend lines. That road promises altitude and delivers thin air. Your refusal to game the system spared your soul from oxygen debt. Counterfeits accelerate entropy. Integrity preserves structure. Where his platform cracked under weight, it wasn't built to bear. Your foundation, poured with patience, reinforced by truth, carries load like a well-designed arch. Pressure translates into stability. And while the world loves to measure with money, heaven measures with wholeness. The overflow on your horizon will arrive with peace attached, because it's coming through channels your character can sustain. Psalm 126:5 breathes through the timeline. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy, and suddenly your earlier weeping reads like irrigation rather than waste. In your quiet years, neuroplasticity rewired reflexes from panic to prayer. Resilience replaced reactiveness, the way tempered steel outlasts raw metal. Your interior is no longer a room of echoing anxiety. It's a sanctuary with tensile strength, tuned to the key of David. What once rattled you now resonates through you. So yes, people will wonder how. They'll run models. Call it luck. Seek a sponsor behind the curtain. Yet the curtain is torn. And the sponsor is public, the God who saw, kept, and built. This is why doors open as if they recognize your name. This is why tables stretch as if a place was always reserved. You will carry resources without being carried away by them. You will scale without shedding your soul. And the legacy rising from your life will read less like a brand story and more like a psalm tested in night. Thunderous at dawn. Stand up now. Lift the blueprint you've been guarding and walk it into the daylight. Take your seat at the table that used to feel mythical. Move with the calm fire of one who knows whose signature authorizes this chapter. The overflow is not a rumor, it's an appointment kept. Rise, step, speak, build, and let the favor of God be the frequency that turns your whole life into resonance. You were not absent, you were astronomical, present beyond naked sight. Like starlight crossing years of dark until atmosphere and angle align. The stars were never off, visibility was. Isaiah writes it like a trumpet inside your ribs. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. Could it be that what looked like silence was photonic latency, the brilliance already emitted, awaiting the right medium to refract it? While rumor called it delay, heaven called it calibration. The halftime hush before a symphony's downbeat. The locker room stillness where strategy displaces noise. And now the sky has cleared. The same light that seemed hidden is suddenly legible. like constellations snapping into pattern when the city fades behind you, while others mistook your pause for drift. God was engineering a base-isolated foundation beneath your life, so the quake of favor would not topple what He's building. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Slides under your feet like bedrock. Psalm 27:1. What if the waiting was structural curing time? That invisible stretch where concrete gains strength before any weight is placed. You weren't merely enduring scarcity, you were shifting respiration from gasping for approval to diaphragmatic peace learning, to move with low cognitive load, to show up without costume, to operate with a signal-to-noise ratio that favors presence over performance. And in that quiet, did you notice a frequency begin to hum inside you? A resonance that matched assignment instead of audience. Heaven funds blueprint, not masks. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Philippians 1-6 threads through your calendar like a gold seam. Your name wasn't penciled into a spreadsheet, it was etched into a rib vault, arches meeting at a keystone that distributes pressure instead of cracking under it. What if the favor approaching is not a lottery, but constructive interference, waves of grace aligning until amplitude rises and doors swing by their own inertia? The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. Have you felt that old shadows thinning? Not because you fought them, but because illumination finally reached critical mass. And as this unfolds, do you sense how your inner architecture cantilevers of conviction? Tensile strands of patience now carries span that once felt impossible. Let an ordinary street witness confirm the pattern. Elias, a subway cleaner who sketches floor plans on break, started mapping emergency exit flow to help anxious commuters during outages. He's no influencer, just a neighbor with a notebook. Management noticed the drop in crowding incidents and quietly asked him to redesign the signage. Weeks later, a scholarship arrived from an urban design non-profit. He didn't chase a stage, he solved a problem. His story hums with Romans 8:18. The sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. Glory taking the shape of contribution, not hype. Quiet skill, aligned motive, measurable mercy. That's what heaven can scale without breaking the vessel. Your stillness was not idleness, it was attunement. You learned to breathe without begging, to step without theatrics, to choose integration over impression. Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal weight of glory. 2 Corinthians 4:17 reads less like poetry and more like physics. Now mass added to your soul so wind cannot toss you. And right here, at the threshold, a final question rises like dawn. If the atmosphere has finally caught up to your star, will you hide again, or will you accept that visibility is stewardship, not vanity? The answer is already forming in your bones. Calm and fierce at once. Stand, not as a brand, but as a bearer. Lift the keys you were given and move through the door that now behaves like a door. Speak with the gravity of one who has been tempered. Act with the grace of one who has been carried. This is your unveiling, funded by heaven, architected for endurance, tuned to the frequency of favor. Rise and shine, walk out the legacy that was hidden only until it was strong enough to last. You are the one who walked through fire and would not let your heart harden, the one who lost much and still chose kindness, who refused to trade truth for a louder room. Isaiah records a promise that fits your footsteps. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. Isaiah 43:2. Could it be that what felt like delay was actually design? A holy sequence aligning strength with assignment. When the timeline looked blank, were you being refined, not rejected? And in the quiet where applause went missing, did a steadier voice rise inside, reminding you that hidden is not the same as halted? The ash on your shoes became proof, not of ruin, but of survival, evidence that flame met faith and blinked first. Old wounds stopped narrating the story and started becoming footnotes. What once tried to scorch identity now illuminates it like backlight through stained glass. Heaven waits until you are whole enough to hold what won't break you. That's why your calendar sounded silent, not punishment, precision. Let patience have its perfect work, that you may be mature and complete. Lacking nothing, James 1-4, has been building room in your soul for weight that used to crush your breathing. While others measured momentum by noise, grace measured yours by depth, while doors seemed shut. Foundations were poured to carry a flood of favor. Does your spirit recognize the difference already? The shift from striving to steady, from hunting for a place to belong to standing where you were always meant to be. Timing is no longer a tyrant. It has become a tutor. The pauses have taught your hands how to cradle rather than clutch. Strength now wears gentleness like armor that doesn't clang. You were not merely surviving scarcity, you were learning oxygen for the heart, breathing without begging, showing up without a costume, moving without the itch for applause. For you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us out to rich fulfillment. Psalm 66-10-12. If wealth is arriving, will it match your mirror or demand you trade your face for a mask? What if increase is meant to feel like rest, not a bargain that drains you, but a river that carries you? The blessing that fits your name does not fracture your peace. It knits your life together where former seams once split. Joy, once sporadic, is learning the rhythm of a resting pulse. Capacity expands without tearing, like skin growing to fit the breath. The yes you carry is becoming a habitat, not a performance. And this is why the ancient wisdom still stands true. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22. This is not a paycheck that purchases your silence. It is provision that amplifies your truth. In Handel's Messiah, the chorus thunders, for he is like a refiner's fire, and suddenly your path makes sense, not scorched, but purified, not delayed, but tempered for endurance. The increase assigned to you isn't only for your hands, it's for your soul. It will feel like breathing, not bargaining, like windows thrown open after a long storm. The more grace you steward, the more room you discover inside your own chest. Resource will serve calling instead of calling serving resource. And the work of your hands will start sounding like your real voice. Let a living witness put skin on this promise. Corrie ten Boom, watchmaker's daughter, Holocaust survivor, and quiet giant of forgiveness, once said, "There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still." She emerged without bitterness, and her story kept rescuing hearts long after the barbed wire was gone. Your journey carries the same signature: loss converted into light, truth chosen over attention, compassion forged where cruelty tried to reign. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. 3 John 1-2 is not a slogan over you. It is the architecture of your next chapter. What healed in private will heal others in public. Provision will arrive with assignments attached, and you will find the tasks strangely sized for your hands. Legacy will look less like a monument and more like a shelter. So rise fully, finally, fearlessly. Stand in the name that has held you through the heat. Step into the room that now recognizes your voice. Carry what is being placed in your hands without shrinking who you are in the mirror. This is your hour of clean increase, truth intact, peace unbroken, favor flowing. Go, build, bless, and blaze, because what tried to burn you only proved you were made to shine. Let courage take the first step and gratitude take the next. Walk forward until faith becomes the atmosphere and not just the act. And as you move, watch how doors learn your name. Wealth that whispers. You're safe now. Doesn't rush the door. It moves like dawn across a horizon, inevitable. Measured. Exact. Though it tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Breathes Habakkuk 2:3 into your nerves. And suddenly the calendar feels less like a judge and more like a midwife. What if the quiet in your chest right now is not absence but alignment? The precise minute hand clicking into place on a clock you cannot see. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. And that includes your increased beauty that arrives dressed as timing, not noise. Inside this hush, do you sense identity settling? As if your name has finally found its full weight. The promise that once felt theoretical is starting to carry temperature. Like sunlight, you can feel through glass. Your future is not speeding toward you, it is unfolding from within you. Petal by patient petal. And what is arriving will fit your life, like a garment tailored in secret, no pinches, nor pulse, only ease. Right now, something is shifting in the unseen, subtle as tectonic plates adjusting under a calm field. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 doesn't silence your passion, it tunes it. Like a string finding pitch against a hidden fork. Your spirit can feel the pressure gradient changing the way the ocean gathers itself before a clean end. Glassy breaker forms. Could it be that the strain you notice is not danger, but potential? Like the held breath moment before a bow releases the arrow, and beneath the surface, are you noticing how rest has more authority than hurry? This is the kind of quiet that builds momentum, not the kind that drains hope. Strength is collecting in the joints of your days, making ordinary motions feel newly deliberate. The coordinates are locking in, and what used to wobble is starting to move on rails. It's not loud yet, but it's undeniable, the approach of a promise on its appointed frequency. At the right time, I think, the Lord will make it happen. Isaiah 60:22 slides across your timeline like a seal that cannot be pried off. When this lands, you won't audition for belonging. Belonging will recognize your voice. The identity wars go quiet when favor takes the microphone. If the wave is already forming, will you meet it standing? Feet rooted, gaze steady, heart unbent, and when doors swing, will you walk rather than sprint? Carrying peace like credentials. What comes next will not require rebranding your soul to keep it. It will require you to be precisely who obedience has been shaping. The room will not change you to host you. It will expand to match the measure you carry. Creation has been modeling this pace all along. Aurora Borealis does not blaze at noon. It writes fire on night only when solar winds and magnetic fields converse. Timing plus alignment equals wonder. 17-year cicadas emerge on a rhythm written into bone, delay to the impatient, design to the wise. In tide pools, Stars reveal themselves only when the sea draws back at the ordained minute. Concealment is not denial. It's choreography. And octopus pigment blooms in true color only when safety is secured. Revelation follows refuge, not the other way around. Your increase is moving with that same intelligence purpose folded into patience. Display braided with protection. What looks like stillness is data gathering, like roots mapping soil before the shoot breaks light. When it arrives, it will arrive as ecosystem, not event, because every ascent attracts a counterfeit. Heed a caution that clarifies, not frightens. Here's V. Ralston, an invented turnaround guru who sold urgency like oxygen. He borrowed victories, staged testimonials, and leveraged fear as a funnel. Revenue spiked. But lawsuits and burnout came like undertow. The aftermath? Brand implosion, staff exodus, family estrangement, the kind of gain that subtracts the soul. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22 exposes the difference. What God sends carries safety. What ego manufactures invoices your peace. Your path refuses that trade. Your harvest will not ask you to disappear to afford it. Boundary lines drawn in truth are becoming guardrails that keep acceleration from turning into spin-out. So hear the verdict over your season. You are arriving on time to what is arriving on time. No flashcards for strangers. No contortions for rooms that never held you. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31 is not bravado, it's ballast. Stand where grace has stationed you. Let the wave meet you upright. When it breaks, move with the calm power of someone who knows the source and therefore needs no permission slip. The whisper, "You're safe now," will not be a rumor. It will be the atmosphere you breathe while you build. Bless and blaze. And as you step, trust will feel like traction steady, yet unstoppable. Your life will testify quietly, unmistakably. Your rest will reveal what striving could never authenticate. Your peace will prove it without press releases. Because when God funds a life, it carries a radiance. No campaign can counterfeit, a kind of sanctified luminescence. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Breathes through the architecture of your days like fresh air through a newly opened clerestory. Matthew 11:28. Are you noticing how the noise inside is losing its voltage? How your pulse is settling into holy homeostasis? This new ease is not passivity, it is precision, the halftime hush where strategy replaces scramble, the measured pause before the conductor drops the baton and the whole symphony moves as one. In that silence, endurance stops being a wound and becomes a witness. You are crossing a threshold where striving ends and receiving begins, not as entitlement, but as alignment. Those who hope in the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles, writes Isaiah 40:31 into your muscle memory. And suddenly the lift you feel makes aerodynamic sense. Drag decreasing, lift increasing, angle of attack corrected. Could it be that grace has tuned your life to its eigenfrequency? So what once rattled now resonates when doors open without force. Does something inside whisper that the load-bearing moment frame of your character is finally ready for the weight of favor? What if the gentleness arriving is actually strength, distributing itself wisely? The way a cathedral's pendentives catch the dome so the whole can rise. This is not wages for services rendered. This is heaven recognizing endurance. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. Hebrews 10:36 isn't theory anymore. It's the physics of your unfolding. You didn't fold. You didn't morph. You stayed rooted, and root systems, like mangroves, filter salt so the forest can drink. Your boundaries have been doing the same with bitterness. As Psalm 23:2-3 describe, He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. And restoration is now functioning like laminar flow, smooth, low friction movement where turbulence once lived. Do you feel how rooms recognize you? As if your true name is a key cut to divine tolerances. What's coming is not survival money. It's wealth braided to identity, truth, and purpose provision that feels like breathing, not bargaining. Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to get wealth, says Deuteronomy 8:18. And the word power arrives like a calibrated torque wrench, strength applied at the right point, at the right magnitude. This increase won't demand costume changes. It will fit like a garment tailored in the dark by hands that measured you in tears. Nature has been preaching the same sermon. Kingfishers enter water with shock-minimizing precision. Your next plunge will pierce without splash. Fireflies pulse in synchronized intervals. Your opportunities are beginning to blink in sequence signal. Response. Release. Lichen colonizes Bara rock slowly. Then suddenly a whole ecosystem appears. Your overnight is years in the making. To ground this in everyday skin, meet Anna, a municipal bus dispatcher and single mom who learned to regulate crisis with a notebook and a prayer. She started color-coding delays, then quietly redesigned routes to reduce missed transfers for night shift workers. No stage, just service. Weeks later, a transportation grant funded her pilot, and her schedule stabilized for the first time in years. She laughs now. Peace made me faster. Her life reads like Psalm 37, 7 inches motion. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him, not still as in stuck, but still as in steady bearings on a stormy sea. The testimony isn't noise, it's navigation, because ascent draws counterfeit invitations. Here's a clarifying caution. Enter D. Halberd, a glossy impact investor, new to you, famous for zero-interest contracts that hid predatory equity clause. He platformed strivers, then repossessed their names when targets weren't met. The consequence? Businesses liquidated, marriages splintered, communities left cynical. That is what happens when velocity outruns integrity, structural fatigue, moral hysteresis, eventual collapse. Your path refuses that exchange. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right. Proverbs 16:8 has kept you from deals that invoice the soul. The wealth coming to you will not demand that you disappear to afford it. All the while, heaven has been building you with cathedral logic. Transepts crossed your timeline to form a cruciform plan, capacity in the shape of surrender. Spandrels, those in-between spaces once felt wasted, now they anchor unexpected strength. Your interior scaffolding has come down, and what remains is load-bearing joy. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. If rooms are opening, it is because light is their operating system and your peace is their password. Do you sense how anxiety's bandwidth is shrinking? How your decisions now click into place with the satisfying inevitability of a well-cut dovetail? So rise fully, factually, fearlessly, Step through the door that finally behaves like a door. Speak with the gravity of one refined. Move with the grace of one carried. Let favor be your cadence and peace your credentials. Stand up now. Plant your feet like columns on sound footings. And build what will outlast headlines, because your life is about to glow with the kind of evidence no marketing can fake. Provision is arriving before pressure, because heaven runs on a different clock. Confirmation, not compensation. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. Wraps around your present like a warm mantle. Isaiah 65:24. For years, you learned to perform, to prove worth, to exhaust yourself into belonging. Now, the script is being revised from the inside out. Look at the birds of the air. Your heavenly Father feeds them, breathes through your nervous system. Matthew 6:26. And suddenly, the compulsion to audition begins to loosen. Is that why your chest has started to unclench at dawn? As if rest were rehearsing you for a larger stage. When emails lose their power to dictate your dignity, doesn't your soul feel like it has finally stepped out of fluorescent light and into morning? Could it be that what felt like random kindness is actually patterned care, stitched into your timeline with meticulous hands? You are being taught a gentler arithmetic where presence precedes performance. This is what it means to be valued simply for existing in alignment. Identity tuned first. Activity tuned second. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Doesn't land as poetry anymore, it lands as governance. Psalm 23:1. In the same way, a cactus opens its stomata at night, quietly storing what it needs before the desert heat. Your spirit has been gathering resource in the dark. Bees seal their hives with propolis ahead of storms. Resilience like that has been forming in you, invisible until the wind tests it. And have you noticed how migratory geese draft in a V, sharing lift so the whole formation flies farther? Alignment is doing that for you. Burden redistributed. Distance increased. Fatigue lessened. If creation rehearses provision before strain, why would your Father do less with a life he crafted? This is not the season of just enough. It is the season where manna logic becomes mastery sufficiency, arriving on schedule. Purpose baked into portion. I will rain down bread from heaven for you, God told a weary people. Exodus 16:4. And the lesson was never scarcity. It was trust that transforms pace. When pressure tries to sprint you into panic, a deeper law answers, my God will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19. Do you feel the tension shifting from your shoulders to his hands when rooms open without you pushing? Does your body remember what peace feels like in the bones? And when your name is welcomed without negotiation, who else but the one who knows you could have authored that entry? To anchor this in lived wisdom, here see S. Lewis, the Oxford scholar and storyteller, who wrote, aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in, aim at earth and you will get neither. That line explains why the grind once devoured your margins while grace now multiplies them. Trajectory determines yield. And from the realm of sacred art, Dante closes his Paradiso with a sentence that sounds like you're unfolding, the love that moves the sun and the other stars. If love truly moves the engines of the world, what arrives in your hands is not random, it is routed by a center that does not miscalculate. Suddenly, the calendar looks less like a cage and more like choreography. Your days hum at a truer frequency. Your yes sounds like it belongs to you. So rise into this on-time abundance. Step out of survival posture and stand where favor has already set a chair. You are stepping into a season where striving ends and receiving begins isn't a slogan. It's a transfer of weight from self-authorization to God's endorsement. Your life will testify. Your rest will reveal. Your peace will prove. When the doors swing, walk not to impress the room, but to inhabit the name you carry. What comes will match your mirror, not muffle it. What stays will expand your voice, not edit it. This is the era of more than enough, not mere survival rations, but a table that keeps expanding while you breathe. Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine, according to the power at work within us, Ephesians 3:20, doesn't read like lofty theory anymore. It feels like voltage in your bones. You are entrusted with pain. Yes, but pain was never your permanent address. To bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. The oil of joy instead of mourning, Isaiah 61:3, is already handwriting your next chapter across old ruins. Can you feel the hinge turning, the precise moment where grief loosens its grip and gladness starts fitting your shoulders again? And as joy steps forward, does something in you finally dare to ask, what if overflow is my new normal? Not a rare visitor. You were sent to broken places because your presence was medicine. Now you're being summoned into beautiful places so your peace can build. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126:5 wasn't a consolation prize. It was a timetable. Right now, provision is arriving before pressure. Like a geyser gathering under quiet ground, or a mountain snowpack storing rivers months in advance. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing. Romans 15:13 keeps tuning your breath to a calmer key. And rooms that once demanded performance start asking for presence instead. When doors open without you pushing, will you walk in as who you truly are, unmasked, unhurried, unafraid, and when beauty feels almost unfamiliar at first, will you let your soul learn its language without apologizing? Creation has been rehearsing your story in plain sight. Termite mounds self-regulate temperature through hidden vents. Your inner climate is learning the same holy balance: steady, breathable, sustainable. Kelp forests rise with upwelling currents that bring nutrients from the deep. Your increase is rising, like that fed by depths no surface storm can steal. Emperor penguins survive polar night by huddling and rotating the cold. Community becomes warmth, and you no longer carry winters alone. Medieval abbeys were built with cloister walks, quiet corridors where noise falls away, so your calendar is gaining cloisters too. Spaces where peace is the infrastructure. In Hildegard of Bingen's sacred vision, she named God's renewing surge Viriditas, the greening power. Do you sense that same sap moving through places in you that once felt permanently winter? To anchor this shift with a living voice, hear the poet and civil rights luminary Maya Angelou, who said, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." That line is the bridge between the pain you carried and the joy you now steward. Changed, not reduced, tempered, not diminished. Your assignment is transitioning from triage to architecture, not merely binding wounds, but building habitats where others can heal. And as you cross that threshold, the measure of success changes too, from applause that fades to impact that multiplies. Because every ascent draws a counterfeit. Let a caution sharpen your courage. Here is K. Draeger, a high-gloss collaboration artist who cut costs with counterfeit materials and padded philanthropy with photo ops. The launch dazzled until recalls, lawsuits, and public trust collapse made the headlines. That's the taxonomy of false abundance. Glitter first, grief later. But your path is authored differently. The God of all grace, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. Real wealth ties to identity, truth, and purpose. It restores what pressure tried to distort and establishes what storms could not. When favor is clean, it will not invoice your integrity. When joy is holy, it will not demand that you amputate your peace. So step into the beautiful places with a steady gait. Let silence be your signature and peace be your credential. Doors are opening because your name now carries the weight of endurance. Tables are lengthening because your presence multiplies nourishment. What's rising will feel strange for a moment, like new shoes that already fit, then natural, then necessary. My God will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19 is turning from verse into velocity. Rise, stand tall, answer your call. This is your era of more than enough, and you are authorized to build, bless, and blaze without shrinking to fit yesterday's rooms. They will scan your life for blueprints, strategy decks, back-channel favors, some master key, and find nothing they can file. Because what's moving through you did not descend from a method, it rose from maintenance. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you, kept working while the room was empty. Matthew 6:4. And that private stewardship is now public current. While others optimized tactics, you kept the topology of your integrity intact, edges unwarped, center unmoved. Could this be why the atmosphere around you has shifted from noise to coherence? The way scattered waves phase lock into a single, undeniable tone. For the Lord sees not as man sees, the Lord looks on the heart, has been the quiet law under your timeline. 1 Samuel 16:7. And in that law, unseen fidelity becomes visible, favor right, when imitation runs out of fuel. It came from maintaining faith when metrics dipped, character when shortcuts winked, truth when silence looked safer. One who is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much, has been the calibration of your days. Luke 16:10. You kept your inner room pressurized like a well-built catenary arch, distributing weight into the ground so sudden blessing wouldn't shear your peace at the joints. Do you feel how ease is not apathy, but engineered stability? How the frame holds because the load paths are honest. When attention tried to rent your voice, you returned to first principles and found that alignment still carries the highest tensile strength. And right there, in ordinary moments, the reward began, not applause, but authority, not a stunt, but a stature. That is why it's flowing now. The Lord God is a sun and shield. No good thing does he withhold from those whose walk is blameless. Psalm 84:11 steps forward like a verdict. The blessing that finds you is incentive compatible with your soul. It does not require you to break yourself to keep it. Can you sense the difference, the shift from extraction to overflow? From chasing to being carried? This is wealth that moves by capillary action, wicking through the fabric of your life without flooding the seams. It's a phase transition on the inside ice to river, where the same substance gains new mobility. And suddenly rooms open, because peace has altered the pressure gradient around your name. This increase arrives without strings, without manipulation, without identity loss, because its provenance is clean, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold, may be found to result in praise and glory. 1 Peter 1-7 has been tempering your interior like steel in a controlled forge. In game theory terms, the payoff now aligns with truth at every node. The hidden costs have been cancelled at the cross. When invitations arrive, do you notice how your yes emerges without bargaining? How your no lands without fear? That's what happens when the Father funds the work signal rises. Static falls, and you stop spending yourself to purchase rooms that were never priced for you. To give this shape in everyday skin, meet Nyla, a hospital linen tech who started timing elevator cycles during night shifts to reduce bottlenecks for transport teams. No titles, just a stopwatch and care. Her notes cut patient, wait by minutes that felt like hours. And the facilities chief asked her to formalize the algorithm she built on scraps of paper. Weeks later, a tuition grant and a new role appeared. And her words were simple. I kept doing the right thing until the right thing noticed. Doesn't Colossians 3:23-24 hum inside that testimony? Work heartily, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. Quiet maintenance. Clean lift. Creation has been preaching the same sermon in parables of matter and light. Desert owls regulate heat by radiative cooling along feather microstructures. Order at the small scale prevents collapse at the large. Vine tendrils climb by thigmotropism, responding to contact with steady spirals rather than frantic leaps. Patience, not panic, secures their height. Coral polyps build reefs grain by grain. Resilience accretes where pressure is rhythm, not assault. And underground rivers carve limestone into vaulted chambers, long before anyone discovers the cathedral evidence that formation outruns visibility by years. If the earth moves like this under God's word, why would your story move with less intelligence across the ledger of your years? Grace has been updating the Bayesian prior. You held about yourself, raising the probability of favor every time you stayed true in the dark. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. Psalm 37:5 has matured from verse to vector field, guiding decisions without drama. Is that why your boundaries feel like shorelines now, firm enough to stop erosion, generous enough to welcome rivers? And as opportunity approaches, do you notice the Fourier silence in your soul, the hum of rested frequencies where panic once spiked? Rise. Then, without shrinking, without costume, step into rooms as the person endurance built. Speak with the weight of one whose foundations were inspected by fire and passed. This is your time to build without bleeding, to receive without losing yourself, to prosper without apology. The blessing on you is not a leash, it is a light. Stand up, carry it, and let your peace be the proof that cannot be counterfeited. It doesn't ask you to perform or shapeshift. It isn't a wage, it is a reward, and the proof is in the texture of it. Calm, open, rooted. In quietness and trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15 settles over your breath like a soft mantle. And suddenly the room inside you feels larger than the room you're in. Blessing doesn't always arrive with fireworks. More often, it moves like groundwater, steady and unseen, until green returns where dust used to rule. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. John 14:27 starts sounding less like a verse and more like your vital signs. Do you notice how your pulse no longer sprints to catch every opportunity? As if the drought has finally ended and the soil is drinking without fear. And when stillness comes, the kind Elijah met in a gentle whisper rather than the quake. 1 Kings 19:12. Does your spirit recognize that frequency as receiving rather than retreat? This calm is not emptiness, it is alignment banks forming so the river can run without flooding. He shall be like a tree planted by streams of water. Its leaf does not wither. Psalm 1-3 reads like your interior architecture now. Roots threading deep where applause cannot reach. Sometimes grace shows up as corridors of quiet in a busy day. Sometimes as doors that glide open without you pushing. Sometimes as a knowing that the long, lean years have completed their lesson. Could it be that ease has become evidence? That the absence of panic is itself a signpost? And beneath it all, the peace of God, which surpasses understanding, will guard your hearts. Philippians 4-7, a custody detail of mercy stationed at every threshold you cross. Heaven is sponsoring your peace, your joy, your rest, your true name on the grant. Not your resume. You're not being paid for output. You're being recognized for identity, who you were when no one clapped for the light you protected in your darkest hours. That light is turning into overflow, opportunities that fit like they were cut to your measure, provision that feels like destiny instead of debt. The composer Johann Sebastian Bach signed his scores Soli Deo Gloria, to the glory of God alone, and this chapter hums with the same inscription: your success carries a center that does not spin. When a room welcomes you now, isn't it because your presence brings oxygen rather than noise? And when you say yes, do you feel how it arises from alignment, not obligation? To anchor this in a human voice, listen to the architect Antoni Gaudí, whose life's work was an act of worship in stone. He once observed, "Originality consists of returning to the origin." That line explains your shift. No more contortions to be impressive, only a clear return to source, where form follows faith. From sacred literature, the medieval mystic Julian of Norwich wrote, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well," a sentence that reads like the blueprint of your peace. Creation echoes it too. Fireweed is often first to bloom after wildfire. Writing color on blackened hillsides, nautilus shells grow new chambers from the center outward. Expanding without abandoning their origin, sandhill cranes cross continents on thermal lift. Resting in spirals of warm air instead of fighting the wind, redwood crowns draw water from fog, turning scarcity into supply overnight. Your increase carries that same intelligence rooted, replenishing, perfectly timed. Rise now with the unhurried authority of someone who finally matches their message. Walk into the open doors as yourself. No costume changes required. Build where peace multiplies. Bless where joy overflows. Blaze with a light that doesn't burn you to shine. This isn't performance, this is provenance. Stand up, step forward, and let the calm be your credential. Peace is rising in your surroundings, like a tide that refuses to recede, spaces that elevate breath instead of draining life. Rooms that steady your pulse instead of taxing it. You are stepping into a cadence where ease and excellence walk shoulder to shoulder. Grace is not lowering the bar. It's removing the sandbags tied to your ankles. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Psalm 16-6 reads like a map of your next address. When you wake and dread does not greet you at the door. Isn't that evidence that heaven has shifted the atmosphere around your name? And as quiet strength settles into your bones, can you feel how favor chooses you without demanding you become someone unrecognizable? You are not an underdog in heaven's eyes. You are a pillar, not a project, a steward, not a struggler. Pillars don't audition, they bear weight with calm authority. My people will dwell in a peaceful habitation, in secure dwellings, and in quiet resting places. Isaiah 32-18 sounds less like poetry and more like policy over your life? What if the proof of this elevation is simply how it feels calm, open, rooted like a river that has finally found its banks? And when people ask for your secret playbook, won't the truest answer still be the simplest? I stayed. I walked. I didn't let bitterness kill the promise. Your story is turning into a living definition of wealth that cannot be counterfeited. Peace when everything is already taken care of. Breath that arrives without bargaining. Mornings that begin without a tug of war. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, Colossians 3:15, has become the governance of your decisions. The referee that calls out anything that tries to steal your rest. You know now that your name is tethered to something sacred and unstoppable purpose that doesn't sprint to be believed. Identity that doesn't shapeshift to be included. And as this unfolds, do you notice how the rooms that open feel like alignment rather than obligation? Like you are being invited to build rather than to bleed. Creation has been rehearsing this truth for ages. The baobab stores water deep within its trunk so whole villages can draw life during droughts. Resilience is not loud. It's prepared. Arctic foxes change their coats with the seasons. Not to become different, but to remain themselves in every climate. Adaptability without identity, loss is wisdom, not compromise. Rivers shed old bends to form oxbow lakes. Proof that letting go of a curve can straighten the current's future. And a dragonfly emerges from its nymph casing and waits while its wings harden. Motion delayed for strength gained is not stagnation. It's strategy. If the earth moves like this under God's hand, why would your elevation arrive with less intelligence? Because every ascent draws a counterfeit. Here's a clarifying caution. Meet R. Selvin, an aggressive performance guru who branded exhaustion as excellence and preached, "Sleep is for the slow." He scaled fast on borrowed charisma, cut corners with deceptive metrics, and mocked rest as weakness. The return on that method? Cardiac collapse at 42. Investor lawsuits, a podcast apology tour, and a legacy refiled under regret. That is the invoice of striving without soul. Your path rejects that contract. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and He will make straight your paths. Proverbs 3-5-6 guards you from shortcuts that charge interest in peace. What's taking root in you now is hosted abundance, not hunted scraps. The Lord will open to you His good treasury, the heavens, and bless all the work of your hands. Deuteronomy 28-12 is no longer a distant promise. It's a present infrastructure. Opportunities are arriving sized to your truth, not to your performance costume. Provision is showing up like destiny, not debt clear terms. Clean peace, congruent timing. And if your voice has slowed while your stature has risen, isn't that the sound of gravity substance that never needs to shout to be heard? So Rizatala, speak slower. Carry the gravity of this moment like a key that fits every door you were born to open. Walk as the pillar you are, steady, sheltering, unshakable. You are not hustling for scraps anymore. You are hosting abundance. Step forward, bless boldly, and build what lasts. The promise survived your storms. Now let your peace become the proof. You're not begging to be seen. You're being positioned to be honored, moved from the margins to the masthead, from footnote to headline. Heaven already wrote the byline, and it bears your name. God is not unjust to forget your work and the love you have shown. Hebrews 6:10 has been the quiet law beneath your long nights. And now that law is speaking out loud, you are being celebrated for enduring without bitterness. for walking the quiet, hard roads, for loving when it felt like loss. Does your heart feel that internal click, as if a hidden latch just released and the door you carried inside finally swung wide? And in that release, can you sense how honor lands like weight? Not noise, gravitas. Not hype, let it in, the wealth, the support. The recognition, not because you must prove worth, but because God has declared the timing. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. Revelation 3-8 isn't a metaphor on your wall, it's a mechanism in motion. Rooms that once measured, you are now measuring up to you. This is not wage, it's witness, not a payout, it's proof. When gates you labeled forever closed begin to move on silent hinges, will you step through as the same true self that survived the winter? And when honor calls your name, will you allow joy to answer instead of suspicion? True wealth shows up as conditions where your spirit can breathe, peace when everything is already taken care of, dawn without dread, a name tethered to the sacred and unstoppable. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 37-4 is no longer theory, it's traction under your feet. You are not an underdog in heaven's eyes, you are a pillar, not a project, a steward, not a struggler. In the halftime, hush between halves. Strategy replaces scramble, that's where you're standing now. The atmosphere around you is switching from scarcity static to reception bandwidth, the frequency of favor. Could it be that calm is the credential and stillness is the stamp? Heaven's architecture has been at work in you, measured and meticulous. Your soul stands like a nave under a fan vault. Forces channeled through flying ribs, so weight becomes wonder. Around the curve of your days runs an ambulatory space to process, to pray, to breathe. This is high design, not accident. It's pre-stressed character bearing new loads without cracking. In the physics of grace, you're experiencing a phase shift from striving to flow. Your heart's Q factor tuned for sustained resonance rather than noisy decay. When honor arrives, it's not an impulse, it's a clean impulse response, precise, proportionate, unmistakable. Creation has been rehearsing your reveal. Glass-winged butterflies carry wings so clear they pass through danger without surrendering identity, transparency as protection. Sunflowers track the sun through heliotropism, resetting at night so they can rise in sync at dawn, orientation over obsession. Bioluminescent plankton ignite beaches when water is disturbed. Agitation becomes light instead of loss. Tardigrades endure extremes through cryptobiosis, pausing non-essentials without abandoning life, rest as resilience. And high in the sky, common swifts sleep while flying, anchored by air currents, rest and motion. Once enemies, now allies. If the natural world moves with this intelligence, why would your promotion be less elegant? To ground all this in everyday skin, meet Renee, a library shelver who learned readers' patterns by memory. On her lunch breaks, she sketched a wayfinding map that grouped genres by reader intent. Not alphabet alone, quiet UX, before anyone called it that. Circulation rose. Congestion fell. And the city funded her pilot across 3 branches. She shrugs when asked how it happened. I stayed. I walked. I didn't let bitterness kill the promise. Doesn't Proverbs 22:29 hum here? Do you see a person skilled in their work? They will stand before kings. Skill plus steadfastness. Hosted by peace. You are being positioned to be honored. And the cosmos is cooperating. In geophysics, it's isostasy, when heavy loads shift. The crust rebounds, upward relief creates rise. In astrophysics, a Lagrange point is where forces balance and motion becomes rest in orbit, held, not stalled. Your interior now runs on homoesis, a stable trajectory that returns to purpose after perturbation. The door is open because the design is sound. The righteous will flourish like the palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Psalm 92:12 names your durability, flexible in storm, immovable at root. So rise taller and speak slower. Carry the gravity of this moment like a key cut to holy tolerances. Honor doesn't rush, it rests and reigns. Step through the open places with a steady gait. Host abundance without apology. And let peace be the proof no counterfeit can fake. Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. Your labor is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58. The headline is, Live, Walk It Out. Here's the twist. The richest thing God is about to give you isn't a number, it's a name. It's your name, restored to its rightful weight. It's the kind of wealth that arrives as clarity, opens as courage, and multiplies as peace. You were told value had to be earned by performance. Heaven says value is revealed by alignment. You were trained to hustle for crumbs. Heaven is seating you at a table that recognizes your voice. When God funds a life, it looks like doors remembering they are doors. Like rooms requesting your presence because your presence brings oxygen. It looks like exceedingly, abundantly above, flowing through the channels character built when no one was watching. The journey, you took those quiet refusals. Those small obediences stitched into long nights became architecture. What once felt like delay was actually design, foundations curing underneath public silence so weight could land without fractures. The promotion isn't a prize for playing the game, it's trust placed on a soul that refused to sell its peace for a platform. That's why this wealth will not extract you from yourself. It will anchor you more deeply in who you truly are. Favor becomes your cadence, peace, your credential, joy, your jurisdiction. And yes, there will be questions. There will be people searching for the secret formula, the backstage pass, the unexplained sponsor. They will miss it if they search your calendar instead of your character. The explanation isn't a trick, it's a testimony. I stayed. I walked. I kept my light when it was costly. That testimony is why what's coming won't crush you. The blessing of the Lord makes rich and adds no sorrow. Your increase won't require a personality you can't bear to live with. It will feel like the first deep breath after years of shallow air, calm, open, rooted. Let this be your final posture as you cross the threshold. Hands steady, eyes clear, heart unbent. Receive without apology, build without hurry, bless without fear. You are not entering a season of just enough. You are entering the era of more than enough, more wisdom than worry, more purpose than pressure, more fruit than noise. The headlines will say surprise, heaven will say right on time. What has been growing? Underground root systems of resilience. Lattices of faith will suddenly leaf out as visible provision. Not all at once, but surely not to impress, but to establish. And because abundance is stewardship, here is how to walk it out. Keep the circle honest. Keep the altar warm. Keep the pace humane. Let generosity be your accent. Let rest be your rebellion. Use money like a tool and truth like a compass. Remember, when God opens doors. He also widens the table. This twist isn't just about you, it's about the lives that will breathe easier because you refuse to trade integrity for speed. Your story becomes shelter. Your overflow becomes infrastructure. If this message met you in a tender place, if something in your chest said, yes, that's me, stay connected. Like the video so the word travels further. Share it with someone who's been walking the quiet, hard road and needs a sign that the season is turning. Comment 777 or your own amen so others can stand in faith with you. And if this kind of content strengthens your walk, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Every click, every share, every word in the chat is part of how this community carries one another. To those who have supported the channel, whether with a super thanks or simply by showing up, watching, and praying, thank you. Your presence is not small here. Your encouragement is part of the miracle we're witnessing, a global table built from simple yeses, a congregation of chosen ones learning to host abundance without losing ourselves. Whether you've been here for years or you arrived today, know this: your journey matters, your voice matters, and heaven is not late. So, beloved, rise. Stand in the light that is already rising on you. Step through the door that finally behaves like a door. Let peace be the loudest thing about you. Carry the gravity of grace and the gentleness of joy into every room you enter. Build what lasts. Bless without calculation. Blaze with a fire that doesn't burn you to shine. The twist no one saw coming is that God's wealth is forming a you that cannot be bought, bullied, or borrowed. That's the headline. Now go live it. Blessing. May the Lord enlarge your heart to carry what He is placing in your hands. May favor surround you like a shield. Wisdom, keep your steps. And peace settle your home. May provision meet you early. Protection stand behind you. And purpose run ahead of you. In the name of the one who opens, and no one can shut, amen.